Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today here at InSource. My name is Lisa Paddock. I'm one of the assistant directors at InSource, and we want to welcome you here today for our webinar with Sherry Kripe, all about bullying. And the title today is Bullying Uncovered: Prevention, Intervention, and Support for Parents. So, welcome today. InSource is your parent training and information center for the state of Indiana, and we provide assistance in understanding that special education journey. And we hope that you will also visit our website at insource.org. You can find your local special education liaison there. You can receive training. You find out about additional webinars. We have office hours with the Department of Education on the fourth Tuesday of each month during the school year, except for December. So we are your parent training center, and we are here to help you understand that special education process. So welcome. So today we are very privileged to have Sherry Kripe. And because of technology challenges, Sherry will be presenting for us today, but we will not be able to see her lovely face besides the picture. But no fear, you will be able to see her presentation. So Sherry is the Assistant Director of MESA and MESA School Bullying Prevention Director at Purdue University. MESA is a program dedicated to empowering communities and preventing violence across Indiana. With over 3 decades of experience as a teacher and an administrator, Sherry has a rich history of collaborating with teachers, parents, and students to create safer educational environments. Sherry earned her undergraduate degree from Manchester College, followed by a master's degree in education from Indiana Wesleyan University. She holds both principal and superintendent's license and is currently a doctoral candidate at Indiana State University. In her role, Sherry is responsible for implementing the U.S. Department of Justice Stop School Violence Grant. She works closely with rural and high poverty schools across Indiana to address and prevent bullying. Outside of her professional work, Sherry enjoys traveling, reading, painting, playing euchre, and spending quality time with her family. And so today we would like to welcome Sherry. We would like to welcome everyone, whether you're watching this live or you've come later on, um, to visit us on our YouTube channel. So, because InSource is the Parent Training Center for Indiana, we receive state and federal funds to assist families in understanding the special ed process. So now you will see a QR code, and that QR code is for this training. If you would please take the time, whether you are on live or whether you are watching at a later date, to scan this QR code. It is very important to us to have your feedback. We would love to have you sign in, take the training survey. We really want to know if we are meeting your needs, if there are things we need to do differently, if you felt that this answered your questions, and any other thing we could do in this presentation to help you become more educated about the subject. You can also receive the resources talked about, and you would receive a certificate. So please take the time and scan the QR code in order to sign in, take the survey, and receive the resources. Because as I stated before, we are the Parent Training Center for Indiana, and we are required um, to ensure the quality of our program. And we want to make sure that we can get these resources in your hands. So we're just going to take a moment while we have time to do this, and then we will move right on to Sherry's presentation, Bullying Uncovered: Prevention, Intervention, and Support for Parents. Additionally, along the way, I will put our website and my email in the chat. If Sherry has anything she would like to put in the chat, that is fine. But please make sure that you do scan the QR code, so that we can get your input. Okay, I am going to stop sharing my screen at this point. And now we are ready. Sherry, if you would go ahead and start your presentation, we greatly appreciate it. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I will stop Sherry as soon as a good moment in order to ask her those questions. We know that bullying is an emotional and very challenging topic, and we're so appreciative that we have Sherry here today to share ideas of way to prevent, intervene, and support. So, Sherry, I will turn it over to you. Thank you all very much. And we're ready to go.
All right. Lisa, thank you so much for that very welcoming introduction. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk with all of you about something I'm extremely passionate about, and that's bullying prevention. So I want to apologize for not being able to see my face due to technology issues. So I appreciate everyone's flexibility. The other thing I want to tell you is I'm coming off of bronchitis. And so if my voice gets a little scratchy or I start coughing, I'll take a pause to get a drink. So I just wanted to tell you that first and foremost. So I'm ready to get started if you are. So October, it's a fantastic month to talk about bullying because this is National Bullying Month. So whoops, I went a little too fast on that. I want to begin. Bullying is a topic that can be triggering to many people. So before we get started onto my presentation, I just wanted to tell you that I would like for you to take care of your mental health and your well-being first and foremost. So if there is something that is triggering to you or evokes an emotional response, a memory, take a moment to, pause or step away and get a drink, go to the bathroom, so you can take care of your mental health. So now we'll get into the nuts and bolts. So just as Lisa told you, I was a teacher for 22 years before becoming an administrator. I taught in the same school corporation for 22 years. I was at Delphi Community Schools and then served in three different corporations as an administrator. I've been at Purdue about 3.5 years now, serving in this capacity, and I'm working on my PhD. I'm all but dissertation. So just, besides my work, who am I? Well, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an educator, and a lifelong learner. Here I am, I'm retired from education, but still loving learning and going back to school. So, um, Lisa mentioned that I enjoy traveling. My husband and I just got back from a 2-week trip to Germany. You can see that picture in the bottom right-hand corner. We were visiting our foreign exchange student, Ava, and meeting her family. So that was a wonderful, wonderful trip. And that's me on a scooter in Hamburg, Germany, risking my life and limb, but boy, did we have fun. So I'm an avid reader. I love to read all kinds of genres, but Remarkably Bright Creatures is a phenomenal book. It's one of my favorites. But I also recently read Spare by Prince Harry, and the person at the library said, "Hey, listen to the audio version of that." So Prince Harry reads the book, so it's like he's talking to you, and that was really good. So I highly recommend that. So this is my family. Excuse me. So, exciting news. I'm going to be a grandma. My daughter-in-law, Mackenzie, that's the one in the middle, and my son Chase are expecting their first child. If you remember my last presentation, I had a picture of their wedding photo. Now I'm going to be grandma, my husband and I, grandparents for the first time. So we're excited. February 1st, the day. So, just a little bit about Mesa. We are committed to empowering communities and preventing violence across Indiana. And we promote safe environments within communities. We work with families and various populations through our outreach, our advocacy, training, and of course, developing leaders within those communities. So, Mesa's mission is to create a voice for those who might otherwise not be heard. So, our objective today is for you to understand and identify what is bullying behavior, and also to provide you with knowledge and some resources to help protect your child from bullying, and then also give you tools to support your child at home if they are being bullied. And then our whole intent at Mesa is to train parents, teachers, students, and bullying prevention to help promote cultural change. So I think it's important as we talk about bullying for us to understand what is the definition of bullying. Because sometimes, as a teacher and administrator, and even now in this role, I hear people saying, my kid is being bullied. And so, I always question, is it really bullying or is there something else going on? Is it a conflict? Um, a personality, disagreement, what is it? So I think it's important for us to understand what is bullying. So first of all, bullying is an action, a behavior that is repeated or has the potential to be repeated. It's ongoing. It's not a one-time situation, with the exception when we talk about cyberbullying, which we're going to do in a couple weeks, but it more in depth. But with cyberbullying, if someone would share an image, there is the potential for that image to be shared, because once you share it, you have no control of what happens with the content. So that's where bullying, in the case of cyberbullying, has the potential to be repeated. The other part that's really, really important to understand about this definition is the imbalance of power. Bullying is all about power. And so when we look at that imbalance of power, is it a real imbalance of power or a perceived imbalance of power? And so when we think about power, we often think about size. We see in the movies where there's the larger student and the smaller student who perhaps hasn't hit their growth spurt, and they pick them up and they shove them into a trash can or into a locker. That's how it's often depicted in movies for those types of situations. So that's one imbalance of power. But that imbalance of power can be numbers, maybe a group of students, two or three against one, or an imbalance of power that's within a social network within the classroom community, grade level community, or school community. It could be, besides numbers, a peer group. Um, Perhaps athletes against me, a band kid, something of that nature. The other thing it can also be is an intellectual imbalance of power. It could be a general intellectual student with against power, having a power imbalance with a student that has an IEP, that has a different ability. The last part, and this is so, so very important, is what is the intent behind the behavior? Is the intent to hurt them emotionally or physically, to embarrass them, to humiliate? What is the intent behind the behavior? Is it to harm? And then what kind of an impact is it having on that student who is the recipient of the behavior? So that's just breaking down the definition of bullying. And so I think for our kids, that was the legal definition, right? That's outlined in the state statute. But for sometimes with kids, it's a little overpowering, and even for adults. So I always tell the kids that bullying is boo. And not just because it's October and it's close to Halloween, but the B in boo is it's being mean, and O, on purpose, and the second O over and over and over. So that's a really easy way for kids to remember what bullying is, being mean on purpose over and over and over. So there are four different types of bullying. And the first type is physical. And the physical one is very easy to identify. That's when someone is putting their hands on another individual. It could be hitting, slapping, kicking, tripping, pushing, shoving, things of that nature. But it only does not pertain to someone's physical being, but physical bullying can also transfer to their physical possessions. If someone is repeatedly taking things, destroying things, taking their backpack and throwing it so that they can't reach it, intentionally breaking their cell phone or their computer, those are also types of physical bullying. The next one is verbal bullying. And verbal bullying is where they use words to hurt and to harm, to humiliate. And so it can be name calling, it can be racial slurs, um, those types of things where words are used to hurt. The next category is social relational and sometimes called emotional bullying. This is where someone is targeted and manipulated. I often see it in schools where someone says, well, if you're my friend, you can't be friends with so and so. That is a social, relational, emotional type of bullying. Ostracizing someone, not allowing them to be a part of the group. I remember in elementary school, kids would have clubs and they would say, oh, well, you can't be a part of my club. Well, that would be another example of this. Um, and so spreading rumors, gossip, that kind of thing. We see a lot of the social, relational, emotional bullying happening sometimes in dating relationships, but also with peer relationships amongst girls. And we start to see this in upper elementary, junior high, middle school. The last type that we're going to talk about is cyberbullying, and that is any kind of bullying that occurs over an electronic device. We typically think of our mobile devices, our cell phones, but this also translates into gaming. We're seeing a lot of cyberbullying occurring through gaming devices because so many kids have the headphones and there's chat features in there that they can talk back and forth. And so that is occurring in that space as well. So any cyberbullying can occur on any type of technology device. And we're going to talk more about this in depth on October 31st at another presentation. Now, not always does bullying behavior fit in these nice, neat little silos. They often will go across, and it may start as verbal and then go to physical, or be a social, relational, emotional type of bullying that also involves cyberbullying. So you can see them be cross categorical. So again, this is just a little bit more of the definition of cyberbullying. Again, it's an electronic form of bullying, but it's aggressive. There's an intent to harm, and it's repetitive. It's ongoing over and over. And the whole um, reason for cyberbullying is because they intend to harm the targeted person. So sometimes I think it's important for us to realize, sometimes we're not sure what to do with the information, that our kid comes home or we become aware that bullying is occurring and we're not sure, what to do, who to go to. So I wanted to take just a moment to know when it's important with cyberbullying to contact the police. So, if there is a threat of violence, and this goes for bullying and cyberbullying, if there is a threat of violence that your child is in fear for their safety and they've been threatened in some way, then you need to contact the police. Now, in the event of cyberbullying, if there is child pornography or sending of sexually explicit messages or sometimes called sexting or sex exploitation, where there's photos that are shared. This is another time where you need to get the police involved. So, depending upon kids' age, this can become something more serious. Another time that you need to contact the police is if someone is taking a photograph or a video of someone in a place where they would expect privacy. This just happened with a family friend. They had someone who put up a cell phone in the bathroom, and they happened to see it. And I was very proud of them for how they handled it. And right away, they sent the video that had been recorded to themselves and then deleted it off of that person's phone who left it in the restroom, and then went out right away and went straight to their parents and told them what had happened. So, yeah, that is an invasion of privacy, and that's actually called voyeurism. So, another time that you need to contact the police is if there is stalking. Or hate crimes, anything that is based upon someone's the color of their skin or against their religion. That is a different level of bullying that you need to contact the police about. So now with schools, there has been legislation of how schools are required by law to handle bullying. And I am often contacted by parents and of course by administrators, to talk about bullying in schools. That's one of the things that I do. But I think it's as parents, it's important for you to understand what the laws are and what the schools are required to do. So this anti-bullying legislation was enacted in 2013, and so schools must provide bullying prevention training every year to their teachers. Now, some of them are put out by the Indiana Department of Education School Safety Academy that they watch videos, and I go into a lot of schools and do training as well. The other thing that is mandated by the state is that kids are supposed to be exposed to a bullying prevention curriculum or bullying prevention instruction done by a counselor, a social worker, or someone that's brought in. I have been brought in to do bullying prevention training for kids. And sometimes the teacher will do it depending upon your school situation. Now, the law mandates grades 1 through 12, and this is supposed to be done by October 15th of every year. But the reason they still do it in kindergarten, but the reason it's kindergarten is not mentioned in the law is because um, kindergarten is still not required in the state of Indiana. So that's why the law outlines it for grades 1 through 12. The schools are also supposed to have available anonymous and personal reporting systems for their students, community, and parents. And then also, schools are legally responsible to respond and investigate any allegation of bullying. Now, that being said, um, they may not be able to share with you what the outcome of that investigation is for privacy reasons. So you have to trust the fact that they are required by law to investigate and respond to the allegation. And you have to trust that they're doing their due diligence to do that. They are also schools are they are mandated by law to report their bullying data to the DOE by July 1st of every year. And we're going to talk about some of that data in a little bit. Now, there were some changes recently in July that were put into place July 1st of 2023 to that anti-bullying legislation from 2013. So now, in addition to the House Bill 1423, we also have 1483, which now what that has done is there is now a timetable that is put in that schools must report bullying incidents to the parents of the targeted student So if your child is being targeted and they become aware, they need to inform you within 3 days. And from what I understand, that is from the point of them becoming aware. And then the student doing the bullying, they must be made aware, the parents must be made aware within 5 days, so that not only is the student being targeted, but also the student doing the targeting, doing the bullying behavior, both parents are informed. They also, under the new law, there needs to be policy put into place by the governing board of the school, the school board, of what is the consequence for false reporting of bullying, because there are situations where kids are not truthful and they lie to get someone in trouble. So there have been incidences of false reporting, which is very, very serious. So they also need to have those discipline guidelines in place. This, I'm really, really excited about this new part of this legislation. And so under this new law, schools need to provide follow-up services for not only the student who is targeted, but also the student doing the bullying. So I know as an administrator, I was guilty of, I would make sure that the person who was being bullied would meet with the school counselor and I would do weekly check-in sessions with them and making sure that they were okay and that the behavior had stopped. And then when it came to the student who was doing the bullying behavior, I would dish out the consequence, as outlined in our student handbook. But the part that I failed to do was to get to the reason as to why the student was doing these bullying behaviors. So I know now, I wish I would have known then, but now I know that behavior is communication. And there's a reason why these students are, acting out and trying to hurt others. So I'm really excited that there's going to be support for both the student being targeted and also the student doing the bullying. And then the other new part of this law is that parents are allowed to preview or review any bullying prevention materials that are being used by the schools, and also any suicide prevention materials that are being used. Sometimes school corporations post it on their website. There's a lot of different ways. Sometimes they send out letters to parents. I know the curriculum that I promote with the schools that are partnered with us through MESA is the second step bullying prevention units. But there's a letter that goes home to the families about it, and there's even links. So if you're not sure, and you're curious as to what the bullying prevention materials are, under this law, you have the right to ask. And then the other part of this law, and I put may because that at the last minute was a change. It was shall, and then they changed it to may. But depending upon the severity of the incident of bullying, the person who was targeted could be transferred, may be at the request of the parents, to be transferred to another school within the corporation. So, like I said, that language changed. So it doesn't mean that it will happen, but it may happen. So that's something you would want to talk to your school administration about. So those are the recent changes to the bullying legislation in Indiana. The other thing about research, and research states across the board that 1 in every 5 students report having been bullied. That's 20% of our students. But I really think that this number is much higher than that. And the reason I feel that way is because there's other research that says that only 1 in 10 students who have been bullied will actually inform a parent or a trusted adult. So I think that number is much higher. And we're going to talk about why that might be. The other research states, this is from the National Education Association, that 160,000 kids every day refuse to go to school for fear of being bullied, that they don't feel safe in their schools. And that is not okay. And that's been kind of my mission, to as I work with schools in Indiana to make sure that we're ensuring a safe learning environment for all kids. The other part was a little startling to me was that 75% of bullying is not recognized as bullying. People often think, oh, well, they're just having fun. They're just teasing. Boys will be boys. And if we don't recognize what is truly bullying and we just dismiss it, then how are we going to fix it? And then the other thing that's reassuring to me and gives me hope is that 70% of all bullying stops when a bystander speaks up. And it's one of the many reasons I like the second step curriculum is because it empowers the bystander. It helps give them confidence to stand up to say, "Hey, that's bullying." And, that's not kind, or you need to stop. That's not cool. So when their peers stop it, um, the bullying stops. So, um, I said that we would talk a little bit about the Indiana data. This came from the Indiana Department of Education. They do an annual report every year from that information that schools reported. So, this is the 2023-2024 data that's published by the DOE. And so 31% of reported incidences of bullying were physical, 43% were verbal, and then that social, relational, emotional bullying, that was 10%, and then written communication, electronic bullying, cyberbullying was 8%. And then if you look there at that purple slice of the pie, that's that combination where it's one or it's more than one type of bullying that happens. So that's what was published by the DOE. And this is across the span of time from 2013, after the anti-bullying legislation was enacted and they started recording um, what bullying was occurring in the schools. You can see obviously a huge decline in 2021 based on the fact that not all schools were in session due to the global pandemic. Now you see a considerable increase between 2023 and 2024. I truly believe I would love to do further research into this, but I truly believe that we're seeing an impact upon the changes in legislation that were enacted in 2023 to that new law, that teachers and administrators are more aware of what is truly bullying, and they're doing a better job tracking it and informing parents. And so that's why I think that, like I told you, I think bullying, those rates 1 in 5 is higher. And I think that's reflected in our data. So, yeah, I would love to research that a little bit further, but that's kind of my hypothesis. So then we're sitting here. I gave you the definition of bullying, but at times we're still like, I'm just not really sure. And this is something I talk to kids about. And I tell them, hey, when someone does something unintentionally that hurts you and they do it once, like maybe they're walking, down the hallway and they shoulder into you and it wasn't an accident and they just do it the one time and they don't say, hey, oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's just them being rude. But then when someone says or does something intentionally knowing that it's going to hurt you, but they do it just the one time, well, that's just them. They're just being mean. But, oh, I missed a slide. But when someone does something intentionally hurtful, and they know that it hurts you, they can tell by the look on your face, or that you have said, hey, knock it off. That hurts. Hey, that's not cool. Please stop. And they continue to do it over and over. That's when it becomes bullying. So, if one of the reasons I am spending time with you today is because if bullying is not addressed, it can have an impact on a person's mental health. If you talk to adults, they can tell you, "Oh my gosh, I remember having been bullied when I was in school." They can tell you specifically who the person was, what happened, where it happened. I know I am a survivor of bullying, and I can tell you who it was, when it happened, how I felt, and the lasting impact that has made into my adult life. So it's really, really important that we address bullying when it happens so it doesn't impact our kids' mental health. Because if not addressed and not dealt with, it can lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety. In some kids, it can lead to social isolation, and it can lead to low self esteem. And in some cases, unfortunately, it can lead to suicidal ideation. So we really um, need to spend time addressing how to prevent and intervene when bullying occurs. There, my slides got out of sync. So I apologize about that. So that's the slide about when it's intentionally hurtful and they keep doing it, even though you to ask them to stop and they know you're upset. That's when it's bullying. So this other part, I think this is important to talk about because sometimes kids just have conflict. We as adults have conflict with others. So, at what point in time does that conflict become bullying? Or how do we know it's bullying and not conflict? So, first of all, in a conflict, there's a disagreement or an argument between two people, and both people can express their sides, their view. All right. There's a back and forth during a conflict. And then when you look, and this is really important, you have to look at the power between those involved in the conflict. Is there a power imbalance? Is it a group against one? Is it a size? Is it an age? Is it a power imbalance of a social network or an intellectual imbalance? So it's important to look at that. And then when it's a conflict, the behavior will stop or change when they realize it's having an impact upon the other person. In a situation where it's bullying, the person, their goal is to hurt them. Their goal is to humiliate them. Their goal is to harm them. In fact, they almost get kind of a pleasure out of seeing someone beat down, hurt, harmed. And then in a bullying situation, the person has more power over the other person. And then this is another key factor. Even when that person realizes, when the person doing the bullying behavior realizes that they're hurting someone, they continue to hurt. That's when it becomes bullying. The other part that I think is important to talk about is not only between the conflict, what's conflict and what is bullying, but then what is teasing versus bullying. You know, remember the statistic that I said that, 5% of people think that, oh, it's just teasing. Oh, they're just having fun. Well, when it's bullying, it's not fun. So, how can we tell the difference between, are they just teasing or is this a bullying situation? This is something I talk to kids about and teachers about because it is sometimes hard to discern. So, in a situation where someone is teasing, everyone's having fun. There's a back and forth exchange. People are laughing. One person may say something, another person may say something. It's all in jest. There's no intent to harm. But when it's a bullying situation, it's one-sided and they're purposely putting someone down with the intent to hurt them and to make them feel bad about themselves. In a teasing situation, it happens once in a while. The both people can be laughing and having fun. But in a situation where it's bullying, it's persistent, it's repeated, and they continue even when they're asked to stop. In a teasing situation, there is an equal participation and the roles can swap. One person may say something, another one may do something, but in a bullying situation, it's one sided. One person is being purposely putting someone down over and over. It's persistent, it's repeated. They know that they're upsetting them. They can tell by their body language, the look on their face. They may have been asked to stop and they keep going and they keep going. That's when it's bullying. Now, in a teasing situation, when someone goes too far and someone says, "Hey, that's enough," or they see that they've hurt someone, they've went too far, they'll stop. But in a situation where it's bullying, even if they can tell someone's upset, even when they've been asked to stop, they've been told to stop, they continue. And again, that they almost get like this perverse pleasure in seeing someone else hurt. That's the difference between teasing and bullying. Now, oftentimes in a social group, some kids will put up with a little bit of teasing that could be considered bullying just so that they can socially fit in. They want to be a part of that group so badly that they'll put up with a little bit of that. But when it sways to that, they're purposely hurting them. They're tearing them down. Their intent is to make them feel less than. It's persistent, it's repeated. They've been asked to stop. It's a power imbalance. And the person keeps going and going, that's when it's bullying. There's a really good book that I like by Trudy Ludwig. Trudy Ludwig, it's Ludwig, has some phenomenal resources on bullying, some books on resources. If you go to her website, she has a lot of great resources, but she has one called Just Kidding. And there's not a lot of bullying books out there that are based on boys, but this one is. And it's one of those things where they're playing and they're like, oh, I was just kidding. Well, he was laughing too. And it really breaks down that just kidding and just teasing how it becomes a bullying situation. So, highly recommend that book. Another book that I like, especially for parents of younger kids, depending upon your child, but this can be good from third grade down. Um, but also, those and I'm sure your kids never would tell on one another. So this is a fantastic book. My kids, used to tattle on one another. And, then it's like, okay, is that tattling or is that reporting? So this is a fantastic book that my school counselor introduced to me when I taught kindergarten that I used. And when my daughter became a teacher, it was the first book I bought her for her classroom. It's no longer in print. You can get used versions of this on Amazon, but the beauty of YouTube, if you type in Tattle and Madeline, there is this lovely lady who has recorded herself reading this book and going through the pages. So you can save yourself some money and play the YouTube video for your kids and then have a discussion about it. But basically, what this book does is breaks down the difference between tattling and the difference of reporting. And tattling goes to that intent behind that behavior. Well, when you tattle on someone, you want to see them get in trouble. At least that was the case with my kids when they would tattle on one another. And it's about seeking attention. Reporting is when you see someone else being hurt or the potential to be hurt or that property is being damaged. That's when it's reporting. So this is a great book to break that down, to help your kids understand that. So now, Let's talk about some warning signs. What are some things for you to look for that may alert you to the fact that your child may be experiencing bullying? So, do they come home with unexplained injuries, bruises, scratches, things that they can't really explain or don't explain? Try to brush it off. Do they have lost things? They're constantly losing, something that you wouldn't think they were losing. Maybe they keep losing a backpack or they keep losing, something at school. Their clothes are ripped or destroyed, their books, their electronics, jewelry. That would go along the lines of that physical bullying I spoke about earlier, where it can go translate into their possessions. Another thing, this is a huge indicator. Kids frequently who are experiencing bullying will have frequent headaches. They will complain of stomach aches or pseudo illnesses. They keep saying, I can't go to school. I don't feel good. My tummy hurts. And so you take them to the doctor, and the doctor's like, they don't have a fever. There's nothing happening. Well, frequent trips to the nurse, I always alert school nurses if you're seeing kids coming, after recess, before recess, maybe a certain class, a certain time of the day can be an indicator that bullying may be occurring. Perhaps your kids once enjoyed school and then all of a sudden now they're having anxiety. They don't want to go to school, or they're having anxiety about the bus, and after school activity. Those are all things that they don't want to go. They don't want to be a part. And then this is really, really hard to sometimes identify, but you need to pay attention to their changes in eating habits. Like, what if your kids come home and they're not eating their lunch at school? All right. And they come home with maybe a lunchbox that they haven't eaten anything, or they come home from school and then they're like starving and wanting all the snacks and stuff right after school. And you're like, didn't you have lunch? Well, sometimes they're skipping meals or their tummies hurt so bad that they don't want to eat at lunch, or they're coming home hungry because they didn't eat, or maybe somebody's taking their food. So that warrants another conversation. Dig a little bit deeper, and really try not to just ask yes or no questions where they have that out. Say, you know why didn't you eat your lunch today? Ask those open-ended questions. The other thing is changes in their sleeping patterns. Are they having difficulty sleeping? Are they having nightmares? I know I had a parent come in and talk to me when I was a principal, and that was what they noticed. They're not sleeping at night. And we dug a little bit deeper and found out that there was a situation with a boy in the class that was bullying him, and that's what was happening. And it came out in the fact that he was not able to sleep. Personality changed. He became very grumpy and um, kind of would lash out with words. And he was just this really mellow, kind kid. The other thing I want to point out is boys react to trauma and boys react to bullying differently than girls. So just really, your kids and you know how they act and you know what's normal. And if there's something that you feel is not normal, start digging deeper. Other warning signs that bullying may be occurring is perhaps their grades start to decline. They don't want to go to school. They don't want to do their schoolwork. They don't enjoy school anymore, or even participating in a sport. Maybe they once enjoyed soccer or basketball, and now they are wrestling, and they just suddenly don't want a part of it anymore. Another change that can happen, that can be a warning sign, is a change in friends, a loss of friends, an avoidance of social situations. Then also, if their feelings of helplessness, or they are starting to act as if they're not as confident as they once were, and you're seeing that their self-esteem is declining, they become more withdrawn, not as outgoing, things of that nature. And then also, this is a huge warning sign, there's self-destructive behaviors at home, running away from home, cutting, wanting to harm themselves, or talking about harming themselves. Just like the parent who talked to me as a principal, that's what they saw, the kind of this change in personality, and they were, would lash out with their words, and they started having behaviors that was just not their child. So ask questions, and stopbullying.gov. If you go to that website and do warning signs, that will give you a comprehensive list of things to watch for. You know, these we just discussed some red flags of some warning signs that your child might be being bullied. But then I hear from a lot of parents, why didn't they tell me? I didn't know. Well, there's a lot of reasons. And I just spoke with someone yesterday about, I had my parent teacher conference, and my child's bullying another, they said bullying, they're bullying another child in the classroom. And that, they were distraught. And so I said, first of all, take a deep breath. It's not a reflection upon your parenting. Kids are learning their way socially, and that's why they need our guidance so that we can teach them and help them learn what is right and what is wrong, and to give them the tools that they need. So they may not tell you, you may not be aware. So, one of the reasons they may not tell you is because they're ashamed, or they're embarrassed that they're being bullied. You know, they know that you love them, and they want to you to be happy and you to be proud of them. And so, you know, when bullying occurs to someone, they automatically take it intrinsically, like something is wrong with me. So they may not tell you because of that. Another one I hear more often than not is, well, I don't want to make it worse. So they really fear that retaliation. And so if you report, and we're going to talk about this later of how to report and when to report, but if there is retaliation, that's another report. Kids that, tell a trusted adult, they should not be retaliated against. And that is a huge, huge fear that keeps them from telling. Um, as I stated earlier, sometimes kids will put up with some level of bullying just to be accepted by their peer. So they may not tell you because they want to be accepted, they want to be a part of a group. Another reason that sometimes kids don't tell is because they don't know that someone's going to believe them. I know this was a situation in my daughter's class. There was some things happening, and she's like, "Mom, nobody's going to believe me because the teachers like them, and they act one way around when the teachers are around, and they act different ways when the kids are around. They babysit for the principal. You know, who's going to believe me over them?" So that might be part of the reason as well. And there's a huge stigma of, snitches get stitches. I wish I could totally debunk that and it could go away forever, but that's what they worry about. They don't want to be considered a tattletale or a snitch. So we really need to work as a community, as a society, in empowering kids to speak up and to not be worried about being called a tattletale or snitching. Another reason they don't tell is because they don't think it's going to help. You know, it's not going to help. You're not going to be able to make it better. And that's the thing that kids need to realize. And that's what I tell them when I talk to them, is that bullying is bigger than you, and you need an adult to help you navigate through it. You need to tell a trusted adult. And then the other thing, that the reason your kids might not tell you is because, one, they don't know how to tell you. and they don't know how to report it or who to report it to, especially in the situation with cyberbullying. It's really hard to report cyberbullying because oftentimes the kids don't know who the person is. They can create fake profiles and, use anonymous tactics, and they don't know who it is. So, how do you report it? So, I've given you the warning signs. I've talked to you about why the kids may not tell you it's happening. So, when you find out your kid does come to you and tell you, hey, I'm being bullied, how can you help? Because I'll tell you, first and foremost, you feel helpless and it hurts you inside because as a parent, we don't want to see our kids hurting. So, the most important thing that you can do is build a relationship of trust with your child. This is hard sometimes because when someone comes and hurts our child, our mama bear comes out and we want to do everything to protect that child and we get angry and we may react and say things, and then your kids can internalize them at, oh, they're angry with me. No, you're angry at the situation. So sometimes you may need to take a deep breath, stay calm, and step away from the situation for a moment to regain your composure before you can come back and talk to your child rationally and calmly. Um, I see this often with teenagers, especially with cyberbullying. They don't want to tell their parents what's happening because they don't want to lose their cell phone. And that is a gut reaction. And I'm guilty of that as well. That I found out, some things were happening online and my first reaction is, well, we can solve that. I'm just taking the phone away from them because then they won't be exposed to that. Well, that's the child's greatest fear anymore. These cell phones are they're linked to their social structure, they're socializing, and that's a huge component. So they won't tell what's happening for fear that their parents are going to take their cell phone away. So make sure you build that relationship of trust, and you don't start building that trust when they're teenagers. You start when they're little. Start early and allow them to have you be that safe spot for them to tell you what's happening so that they're comfortable about telling you about their problems. Also, like I stated earlier, look for those warning signs that they're being bullied. Do they have bruises, scrapes, unexplained injuries, changes in their behavior, anxiety about attending school, pseudo illnesses that cannot be documented through your doctor as an illness. So, also, another thing you can do, and we're going to talk in depth about this, notify the school if you become aware that there is a bullying situation in writing and report it immediately. Don't ignore it. Please do not downplay it because the schools can't fix, the teachers can't fix what they don't know. So make sure that you are reporting these incidences to the schools. Keep a record of the incidences and always follow up with the school administrator. Put it in writing. We're going to talk more about that. Report to the authorities and if the police, if that's warranted, and reach out to people to help support you if you need help navigating the situation. Um, it's also important that if your child is struggling with friends and finding a group, help them form good relationships. Find out who their friends are. Invite them for play dates. Get them involved in things that they enjoy. Kids desire connection. And so we need to really, as parents, nurture those strong friendships. I mean, it may be a small group. There may be two one, three kids that your child really connects with, nurture that, promote that, encourage that. Make sure that you are discussing safety plans with your child. What should they do if they feel unsafe? If they're harassed, where should they go? What should they do? They need to know. Um, if you discuss this ahead of time, they're more prepared. Also, ensure that this is so, so important. And I tell the kids this all the time, this is not your fault, and you have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. When bullying occurs, it's really about the person doing the bullying and not about the person that the behavior is happening to. That is so hard. Easy for us to say, hard for kids to understand, but it's so important that kids are hearing that message that you are not to blame. This is not your fault, and this is about them, not you. So as I told you earlier, we're gonna go more in depth into reporting when bullying occurs. So it is important that you report the situation to the school. So you want to have as much information about the bullying incident as possible. When did it happen? The date. Remember, it's repeated and ongoing. So the first time it happens, you're going to want to document. Well, on Thursday, October 17th, on the school bus, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Who were the other kids involved? Was it more than one kid? Were there any um, bystanders that witnessed what was occurring? Ask your child what happened and write it down, because we forget. And so we want to make sure we have that documentation. And then not only document what your child says, but also document all of your communication with the school. If you call in and tell them, I would follow up with an email as per our phone conversation, da da da, and restate what you said. So you have a documented account that this was reported, date and time, date of the communication, and a discussion summary. So you call, write down what the principal or counselor, whomever you spoke to, who you spoke to, and a summary of the discussion. I have always been taught that if it's not documented, it did not happen. So this is so, so important. That way, then you can also start um, documenting that pattern of repeated behavior. So, bullying behavior. So, breaking that down. Bullying can occur, both boys and girls can exhibit bullying behavior. Now, boys are more likely and more often to engage in physical bullying, and girls are more likely to experience that social, emotional, relational bullying and sexual harassment. And boys and girls usually bully others out of frustration with things happening in their own lives. Just like I told the kids, when you're the target of someone's bullying behavior, it's really about them, not about you. Yeah, it's things going on in their own lives. And so I always say, hurt kids, hurt kids. So the other thing about bullying behavior, children often target those who are perceived, either real or perceived, um, that are weaker than them. So remember, bullying is about that power imbalance. So that person who feels that they have power over someone who's perceived as weaker. The top three areas that kids will bully others for are based upon someone's appearance. It doesn't matter whether it's they have braces, they have glasses, they have freckles, they have red hair, they're short, they're tall, they're thin, they're overweight. It doesn't matter. I always say that bullies do not discriminate. So it can be anything about anybody's appearance. Another area that people are bullied over is due to real or perceived sexuality. And this can have a huge, huge impact, particularly in our middle school and high school students who may be, um, questioning their sexuality, or, just aren't attracted to males or females yet. And so somebody starts, calling them gay, then they start thinking, oh, well, am I? So this can have a huge, huge impact on them. And then another area um, that kids target is on ability or disability. Um, Oftentimes, kids bully just to simply go along with the crowd, and bullying behavior occurs because someone has greater social influence, and someone that is really concerned about being popular can also exhibit bullying behavior so that they can elevate themselves within that social structure. Again, bullying behavior, kids that tend to bully, it's linked to depression, and kiddos who have bullying behaviors or exhibit those bullying behaviors actually suffer from lower self-esteem. They're easily manipulated or pressured by others, and this is huge. They have a difficult time identifying with the feelings of others. They struggle with exhibiting empathy. The other thing that kids that experience bullying behavior also view violence in a positive way. And that's a concern, and so that's something as a society, at a societal level, that we need to address. Another thing, that those who tend to bully others have difficulty following rules. We talked a little bit about students who are being teased for their real or perceived sexuality, but our marginalized students experience um, bullying at a far greater rate. The national statistic is 20% of kids are bullied when someone identifies as LGBTQIA plus. 85% of them have been verbally harassed, and 40% of kids who identify as LGBTQ, 40% have been physically assaulted. And that is just so disheartening to me. If you have a child who has already identified or is struggling with their sexuality, a great resource is Gleason, GLSEN.org, has lots and lots of resources. You know, we can talk about the scary things and the bad things of cyberbullying, but some of these in social media, but some of these social media groups can really be great resources and places of and communities of belonging for our students who may be from a small rural community, that they don't have, friends that are like them, that they can feel that they connect with and associate with. These can be really safe spaces for them to connect. So this is another statistic, that this was a little bit different from 2018. The one previous was a more recent statistic, but 70% of LGBTQIA plus students were verbally bullied, called names, threatened in the past year because of their sexual orientation, and then 59% because of their gender expression, and 53% based on gender. And then we talk about, other marginalized students, our BIPOC community. Our BIPOC kids, our students who are Black or Hispanic, are more likely to be bullied in school. And racial minority students specifically report more instances of being threatened, hit, put down by peers, having belongings stolen from them, damaged, and having force upon them. So, how do we respond? We find out that our child, our most precious possession is being bullied. So, first of all, make sure that they're safe. That is the most critical part. And I always tell teachers that that's the first thing. When you respond, you make sure that the kids are safe first. And then two, take that moment for yourself. Take a deep breath, count to 10, stay calm, listen, and focus on what your child or your student is saying. And make sure that you show them empathy that, that they're cared about, that they're loved, and they're going to be okay. So, in the I always like to throw in with my bullying also cyberbullying because it's just a little bit different. Um, when you find out your child is being cyberbullied, don't respond to it. Don't tell your child to retaliate. This is so important. Save the evidence. Print it out. Take a screenshot. Record the screen. Take a photo of it with your cell phone so you have that evidence, whether you need to go to the police or you need to show the school. It's important that you have that evidence. And remember, you need to show that it's repeated and ongoing, unless it's, sexting or nude photos. Encourage your children to come to you. And if they don't feel comfortable coming to you, go to a trusted adult. My trusted adult was not my mom or dad. I didn't have a dad in my life growing up, and my mom worked a lot. So my trusted adult, that it was my aunt. And so I would tell my aunt when things were happening. On social media, block the bully. It's important to block, and I will go more in depth in my next presentation on the 31st about how to do this. And then not only block that person doing the bullying behavior, report it. You need to report it to the social media platform. So now, making a bullying report. All right. Now, most of the schools have an anonymous bullying reporting form on their websites, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But make sure that you know and your child knows how to report, who the students can report to. Like I said earlier, when you're documenting your information, gather all the information. And if you're filling out a report online, fill out the form completely and make sure you're submitting it in a timely manner to the school. So that schools are supposed to have an anonymous reporting form on the school website. Now, you can go to your individual school and look for it. If you can't find it, sometimes it's under parent resources, sometimes it's under student resources. If you can't find it, go up to the search bar and put in bullying or bullying reporting form, and then do a search. That's how I had a parent contact me about a situation occurring at a school, and I was trying to provide support to them. So I went to the school website and I had to really look to find the form, the anonymous reporting form, but I found it and I sent the parent the link. So if you can't find it under your individual schools, then go to the corporation, the main website, and put in bullying reporting form. And if you can't find it in that way, then contact your central office, or your school secretary and request at where do I find the bullying reporting form. I know that's one of the things I help schools set up, as provide technical assistance in setting up anonymous reporting forms for schools and corporations. But I know as an administrator, in the corporations I worked in, we had anonymous reporting forms. And when a report went in, it went to all administrators were notified. And then you would look and see whose school was it, and then, that alerted me, do I need to, investigate right now or first thing in the morning? So, um, they will investigate. They're required by law to do so. So make sure your child knows when they need to report, when they are being hurt, and when it's ongoing. and it's repeated and it happens on purpose. And they need to know who they can report to, where to find that reporting form. Some schools still have paper ones that they can get from their counselors that are outside their counselor offices, and how to report it. Make sure your child knows it's not their fault, they're not to blame, and that you are there for them to support them. They're not alone, and you're going to help them through this. Now, they need to understand it's not their responsibility to make bullying stop. It's the adult's responsibility to make bullying stop. And bullying is never okay. It's never okay. And absolutely every child has the right to be safe and feel safe in their learning environment. No one deserves to be bullied, and absolutely everyone deserves to be treated fairly and with respect. So if your child comes to you and you find out they're being bullied, um, I heard this from a presenter once, and I thought, oh man, I wish I would have thought about that as a parent. Because, it does, when our kids hurt, we hurt, and we try to fix it right away. And I remember, I would tell my husband things and he'd be like, "Well, you need to do this, this, and this." And I finally had to say, "Honey, thank you, but I need you to not try to fix it. I just need you to listen to me." So it's the same things with our kids. What do you need from me? Do you want me to help you? Do you want me to listen to you right now? Or do you just need a hug right now? So do you want helped? Do you want heard? Or do you want hugged? So I so wish somebody would have given me this little golden nugget when I was raising kids. So here are some things I'm just going to go over briefly, because of cyberbullying impacting so many of our kids. Listen to your kids without judgment. And that's with cyberbullying, especially if they get into a situation where sexting has occurred and they have made a poor decision in sharing a picture of them maybe in their bra or panties. Um, they're afraid, they're embarrassed, and they're afraid you're gonna be disappointed in them, so really try to listen without judgment. Um, Make sure that you're validating how your child feels, collect the evidence, contact the school or the police, depending. Please do not contact the bully's parents directly. I have seen this go downhill quickly when parents try to solve it on their own between parents. Um, Work with your child to put those safety, things in place, of what they can do so that they feel safe and to avoid reoccurrence of this happening. Um, Seek counseling, spiritual guidance, if your child needs it, and also contact law enforcement if it's warranted. Please avoid these mistakes and don't tell your child to just ignore it. They'll stop, it'll go away. That doesn't work. Um, don't blame your child for being bullied. It's nothing that they did, it is not their fault. They don't deserve this. Please, please, please. I see this on social media and I hear this all the time, and it makes me cringe when people say, well, if they hit my kid, I told them just to punch them back. Violence does not solve anything. Fighting back against the child who is doing the bullying is not going to make it stop. It could get your child seriously hurt. So please, please, please do not encourage them to become physically violent. And then parents should also, as I stated earlier, please, please, please resist the urge to contact the other parents and get involved. So I'm going to give you some steps of what you can do to help your child stop bullying and to be resistant to bullying. So start early, start those conversations early, and it's never too late. Maybe your child's in fifth or sixth grade. It's not too late to start to build their self esteem and talk to them. Teach your child how to be assertive. It's really good to go through and model what that looks like, practice how to do that, and encourage your children, if they're a bystander and they see bullying happen, to stop it when they see it. If they can intervene on the behalf of someone else, like I said, 70% of the time it will stop it. Or even I tell the kids that if they see things happening on social media, not to engage in it, but then maybe send them a text message, call them, or at school the next day, like, hey, I saw what so and so said on Snapchat. That wasn't cool. I hope you know I don't feel that way. I think you're awesome, or, whatever, just to really help them lift others up. Listen and support your kids and their friends who speak up, encourage that, reward that, acknowledge that, really give them high praise and gratitude when you see that occurring. Make sure that you're watching out for those signs of depression. They're sleeping a lot, they're not eating, or maybe they're overeating. You know your child, you know what is the norm. So really pay attention to those. And don't be concerned about the negative stigma attached to mental health. We are seeing such an increase in um, depression and anxiety in our kids. So please recognize those signs. Tell your child to take action when they see bullying behavior occurring, and make sure that you're communicating your expectations about how you expect them to behave. I remember my mom, she would call me out if, like we would pass somebody in the store and they would say hi, or she didn't hear me respond. She'd be like, that person said hello to you. Why didn't you respond? Or isn't that person in your class? Why didn't you say hi? There was always that expectation of I'm always to be kind, I'm always to be welcoming and open. So make sure you communicate your expectations and model those behaviors. Your children are always watching. Your children are always listening to how you talk about people and what you say to people and how you treat people. So if you're making fun of people, you see somebody in the store that may not have a flattering outfit or may be overweight, and you make some unkind comment, well, you're giving your child the message that it's okay to say unkind things about people. So, and get support. If your child is being bullied, get them the support they need, whether through school, through, mental health supports, or through spiritual interventions through your local church, synagogue, or whatever your faith may be. So again, if your child's bullied at school, what should you do? First, contact their teacher and let them know. Document it. Contact the school counselor. And if that's not helping, go to the school principal. And if you've contacted and you've documented, you've went to the teacher, you've informed the counselor, you've informed the principal, this is still occurring, nothing is happening, then you go to your school superintendent and let them know. And then finally, if this continues to happen and you're not seeing any changes, it's negatively impacting your child, then contact the Indiana Department of Education. And remember, take a deep breath and document, document, document. Did you have a question, Lisa?
I did not,
Okay.
Sherry. I was just ready. We do not have any questions
Okay.
right now.
All right.
Um, I want to just thank you. And you may have more slides.
Am I out of time?
No, you are not out of time.
Okay.
When you called on me, I just wanted to respond to
Okay. I
every
saw
one
your
of you.
face poke up,
Yep,
so I
yep,
thought, oh, maybe there's
yep,
a question.
yep. Just wanted to respond to you.
Okay. Thank you. So the other thing, and for our teachers who are here, make sure you're creating a culture of inclusion and belonging. That your classroom is welcoming and promotes respect for all students. encourage your kids to show empathy, and make sure you're monitoring hotspots in around the building where there's, a lot of transition times and maybe not as much supervision. I think about the bathrooms, our playgrounds, and our cafeteria. I know I would always pay attention to make sure my recess duty teachers were not just standing there visiting, and that they were actually watching, what was happening on the playground and, spreading out. So it's important to create that safe, inclusive learning environment. I told you as part of the new law about the safety plans. These are things that through Second Step I share with our schools. But if your child is being bullied or is doing the bullying behavior, they should be creating a safety plan for each of your kids and implementing that at school so that they're getting the support, that they need. Here are some resources. This is my absolutely favorite resource. It's smartsocial.com. They do have an app, but I will be honest with you, I have the app on my phone, but I prefer the website. Maybe it's because of my age, but they have so many resources. So if you go to their page, this is their web page, and you go up to the top for resources, look at all of these resources that are free for you. They're going to, ask you, do you want to become a member or is your school a member? I have never paid for anything, but they have evening webinars that you can participate in. They just had one the other day on bullying that was really good. Um, a lot about like the TikTok type of videos and things. This is how I keep abreast of things because things are constantly changing and it's so hard to stay on top of it. So, fantastic resources. The other thing that they have are um, software guides and app guides that can help you know if these are safe for your kids. They also talk about smartphones and tablet guides. What age should your kids, have their first smartphone, or when should they get a tablet? They can give you suggestions on parental controls on your Wi-Fi, network guides, computer guides. There's just a plethora of information for you. And then I'll talk more about this next week, but it's important that you create those safety expectations for your kids when they do get onto social media. If you can delay your kids participating in social media as long as possible, you're going to avoid a lot of problems. If you can delay your child getting a cell phone until as late as possible, again, you're going to avoid some real problems. Cyberbullying is growing and it's a real thing. So it's important, to have those conversations and put those safety parameters in those guidelines and expectations for your kids ahead of time. I wanted to share with you some resources about empathy. Teaching kids empathy is one of the best things you can do to prevent bullying. Just remember how I said earlier that those who bully have a very hard time understanding how others feel. So if you're able to teach your kids, to put themselves in someone else's shoes, um, that goes a long way in promoting kindness and acceptance and to prevent bullying. So these are some fantastic books out there for you to read with your children. I don't, people, always say, oh, well, I quit reading to my kids when they were in elementary school. Well, you know what? I have found it doesn't matter how old our kids are, everyone enjoys being read to. Think how much we all enjoy audiobooks. So, your kids are never too old for you to read to them or, promote these types of books. Another list that I have is teaching kids about kindness. Have you filled your bucket today? That's something we use in our family. They may say something mean or unkind, and I'm like, hey, you just emptied my bucket. And what are you going to do to fill my bucket back up? And, we giggle and laugh, but, it's true. We all carry around those invisible buckets that people are dipping into and adding to throughout, the day. So these are wonderful, wonderful books about teaching kids to be kind to one another. And again, your kids are watching. And are you modeling kindness, random acts of kindness? Nothing thrilled my heart more than I was with my daughter one day in the car and we were at Starbucks and she paid for the person's drink order behind me. And I was like, that makes me proud because I've done that for years and now she's doing it. And, nothing was ever said other than I'm like, hey, that was really nice of you to do that. How kind. That makes me proud. So, and finally, here's a QR code. This is a list of bullying prevention books. If you are a parent or an educator, this is pre-K all the way through 12th grade. It tells you the book, the author, and gives you a short synopsis of what the book is about. So, I'm a reader. I love books, and I think they're absolutely wonderful tools to use to talk about the subject of bullying and to help promote empathy and kindness. So that's my presentation on bullying. I want to thank you all for joining me today and being a part of the presentation. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Lisa, thank you for the opportunity to speak today about bullying prevention.
Sherry, thank you so much for all that good information, and discussing the practical and the emotional part also. Um, and we want to thank you. And there's Sherry's email up there. If you need anything from me, you may be watching this afterwards. My email is lpaddock, PADDACK, at insource.org. Our website is www.insource.org. This has been recorded. We will have this up on our YouTube channel in a day or two. And we hope that you will visit our website. You will share our resources and the resources on our YouTube channel and all the wonderful things that Sherry's brought to us today. Sherry, if you would not mind stopping sharing your screen, I am going to share one more time our code for people who might end up watching later on that didn't join. So, again, InSource is the Parent Training Center for Indiana. We help families understand that special education process, and we are state and federally funded to do what we do and bring resources to assist. So if you are watching this and you didn't scan it in the beginning, please feel free to scan now at the end and sign in, do a training survey, receive the certificate, and the resources. So we wanted to give you one more chance to do that. So at this time, I do not see any questions. I want to thank you all for joining us. And Sherry, thank you so much for that. And this will end our presentation. And as Sherry said, she's coming back on the 31st to talk about cyberbullying. And we're very much looking forward to that. So please join us at 1:30 on the 31st, where Sherry will speak again about cyberbullying. So at this time, we want to thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sherry, and for the participants. And we will now stop the recording and end the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye-bye.